continuing with the Gospel of Mark, which is great. So just a little recap. We see that there's kind of this, preamble that we have. The first verse is in the beginning of the gospel, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and you see that it's kind of invoking that idea of creation, and it's saying the Son of God. But what's also kind of wild is that's a title for Caesar. So you have all of this work that is being done, like that's you have that work that's being done here to kind of set up the scenes where you have Caesar and Rome and powers and all these things, and you see through John the Baptist that like he's even the culmination of all of the prophets that have gone before him. Jesus is baptized, and all this important stuff happens where the heavens are ripped open. But when the heavens are ripped open, it's you see a dove come down in peace. Like these are all like huge ideas that are happening here. And then he starts calling all of his disciples, and you kind of have this section where it's kind of like miracles, healings, and parties that are happening. That he's just healing all these people, and all this stuff is going on. And then we get to the beginning of chapter 2, and we're going to start reading at the beginning of chapter 2 and kind of go through a little bit of 3 in one fell swoop. But we talked about the beginning of chapter 2 last week, and my favorite part about that, this is the paralytic being dropped down, is that I think, and you guys can disagree with me, like you have every right to be wrong, like that's about this, is that Jesus, that the healing of the paralytic is showing us what the gospel is going to be doing. Like this guy is healed. Hello, everybody. Come on in. We're just doing the recap right now as we begin. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Alton Baines joining the adults again. Like he's like, there's too many cooties going on in that other room. Like there's just too much. And so it's kind of this overall showing of the gospel where this guy his sins are forgiven, he's healed, and then they're all amazed. And I really think that the word amazed is a sign of the resurrection here in the Gospel of Mark. All right. So does anyone have any thoughts or anything like that before we read this next section? No thoughts? Everyone's just keeping it to yourselves today?
I mean, I'm thinking.
Yeah, like, you don't have to say anything. Yeah. And so, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to read chapter 2, all of chapter 2. So we're going back a little bit, and we're going to go through 3 verse 6. And again, as we look for this, look for those hard and soft splits. Like, is something a hard transition where we're moving to a new idea, or is this just a new story in with the same idea? And so that's kind of why I'm looking at we're reading past chapter 3 and see if we can notice any of these. All right, let me make sure I got this working correctly. See, I'm not even anywhere near. Oh man, I hit the wrong button. There we go. All right, now let me bring Zoom over. All right, we hit this button, and then this button, and then this button, and this button. It's a lot of buttons to push. All right, here is Mark chapter 2.
And again he entered Capernaum after some days, and it was heard that he was in the house. Immediately many gathered together, so that there was no longer room to receive them, not even near the door. And he preached the word to them. Then they came to him, bringing a paralytic who was carried by 4 men. And when they could not come near him because of the crowd, they uncovered the roof where he was. So when they had broken through, they let down the bed on which the paralytic was lying. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic,
"Son, your sins are forgiven you."
And some of the scribes were sitting there and reasoning in their hearts,
"Why does this man speak blasphemies like this?
Who can forgive sins but God alone?"
But immediately, when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they reasoned thus within themselves, he said to them,
Why do you reason about these things in your hearts? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, "Your sins are forgiven you," or to say, "Arise, take up your bed and walk"? But that you may know that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins. I say to you, arise, take up your bed, and go to your house.
Immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went out in the presence of them all, so that all were amazed and glorified God.
We never saw anything like this.
Then he went out again by the sea, and all the multitude came to him, and he taught them. As he passed by, he saw Levi the son of Alphaeus sitting at the tax office.
Follow me.
So he arose and followed him. Now it happened, as he was dining in Levi's house, that many tax collectors and sinners also sat together with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many, and they followed him. And when the scribes and Pharisees saw him eating with the tax collectors and sinners, they said to his disciples,
"How is it that he eats and drinks with tax collectors and sinners?"
When Jesus heard it, he said to them,
Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance.
The disciples of John and of the Pharisees were fasting. Then they came and said to him,
"Why do the disciples of John and of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?"
Can the friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, or else the new piece pulls away from the old, and the tear is made worse. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins, the wine is spilled, and the wineskins are ruined. But new wine must be put into new wineskins.
Now it happened that he went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. And as they went, his disciples began to pluck the heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him,
"Look, why do they do what is not lawful on the Sabbath?"
Have you never read what David did when he was in need and hungry, he and those with him? How he went into the house of God in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the showbread, which is not lawful to eat, except for the priests, and also gave some to those who were with him. The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is also Lord of the Sabbath.
Chapter 3.
And he entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand,
Step forward. Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?
But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man,
Stretch out your hand.
And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out, and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him.
Oh, man. Oh, man. We're destroying Jesus already. All right. Okay, so before we start talking about individual things, this will kind of be an individual thing. Splits, splits. Where are hard splits in this? Like at that where we're starting new themes. Let's try talking about that first. Let's see how you guys do. So we started with chapter 2, and are there new themes, and where is everything split? And we could talk about like the end of chapter 1, 2, and as well, into 1 as well. But where do you think, or is this all kind of one idea?
I don't think the theme changes. I think the magnitude just keeps
Okay.
doubling down on the same theme.
Okay. All right.
I don't
Now,
think we got hard enough into 3 to say what 3 goes on to, but I think it just keeps, it's repeating the same pattern, but on a larger scale. That's how I perceive.
Yeah. So I'm going to push on that just a little bit here. So we started off with chapter 2, and I've always, and this doesn't mean that this is correct. This is just the way that I've always looked at it is that you kind of have a new idea going on between chapter 2, verse 12, and then on into 13 with the calling of the disciples. Do you think the calling of the disciples is just a further clarification or further impounding, or are we? And the whole story is growing, like it is growing, but that's.
I think it's multiplying. I think it's still just the disciples is kind of reiterating the way people doubted and the way people imposed Jesus to heal.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's how I take it.
No, that's good. That's good. That's good. Does anyone else have any thoughts on all these things? Notice what I did to. This is why we're talking about this first. Notice I kept us reading into chapter 3. It is. What do you think of that chapter break on chapter 3? Like that. That's it. Does that warrant the chapter break being there?
I don't think he's worried about people knowing that he's there anymore. Seems like to me,
Okay.
like healing that guy's hand.
Okay.
Because he knew right there that when he does that, people are gonna see. And then as soon as you got into chapter 3,
Yeah. Yeah. He's healing that guy, and so like that's.
I think the break should have happened right after he healed the man's hand.
Yeah, because they're still kind of talking about the Sabbath, right?
They were walking there. They were going there
to
begin with. So there was just the continuation of that journey.
Yeah, because if you notice, every little section in Mark starts with like, and then they did this, and then they did. It's kind of it's kind of like my Sunday morning. Chris arrives at church, unlocks the door, turns on the lights, and then he did a service. And then he talked to some people, and then he did a service, and then he went home and he took a nap. There's kind of even though all those words are doing that, the 2 and thens for the service time, we're all kind of talking about the same thing, and a nap is something different, and these are basically how my Sundays function, like that. But that's and this is why I think it's important. It's like, it kind of calls us to, all right, what is Mark trying to tell us here? And with all these, and then immediately, and then this happened, he's looking at all these things like, all right, well, how is this stuff being worked out there? So do you think it's a bad chapter? So Tom spoke up. You think it's a bad chapter break? It should be after verse 6.
Later.
Yeah, it should have been after
when the Pharisees are going out and plotting against him. Like that should be.
Or the crowd follows Jesus like that.
Yeah.
I would bet and envision that the original transcript did not have any chapters or breaks.
They did not. They did not. And that's a good point, Jeff. And this is where I was getting, is that the original stuff, when Mark was writing this, he didn't go verse 1, like that, verse 2, like that's not, it's like, ooh, chapter, it's not, that's not how they thought. This was all just written down. Yeah, like
Full translation.
yeah. And then so we added in medieval times, we added the chapters and the verses because it's easy to go, where are we? Yeah. Chapter 2, verse 11. Yeah. You know, like so the reason why I'm bringing this up, as you are reading all these things, the chapters are helpful, and by and large, they're good breaks. But remember, that's someone's opinion as to where the break is. You know, that doesn't mean that that's where the actual break is. And so when you're reading it, you don't have to be devoted to those breaks. You know, like that's all those things. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to, what my goal is with this is to help you learn how to study the Bible and to get freedom from some hangups that you may have where when you read it, you're like, oh, I kind of know how to read this now. You know, like that's what we're doing. We're working at getting you good on the training wheels. We're going to be taking off training wheels, and you're going to be jumping by the end of this. All right, like so that's like that. That's what we're doing.
Like a healed paralytic.
Yeah. And so we're working on all these things. All right. Yeah. The paralytic's going to be jumping on the bicycle. It's great. All right. So let's talk about kind of near the beginning of it. We can go back to the beginning of chapter 2 if you want. We talked about that a lot last week, though. But if you have any questions or statements about that, but what do you think about specifically chapter 2, verse 13? You know, kind of on into 18 and beyond. Like what stood out to you during that kind of section? Did anything hit you there?
To me, it was interesting in all of these chapters. He called the disciples at different times. So he started out with Andrew and
Peter.
Yeah.
Simon. And then Levi was third, and then going on, kind of looking forward.
Yeah.
Appointed the 12 apostles after that. So I didn't realize what order they were in or anything.
Yeah.
That was just interested me to see what order they got called.
Now, does anyone's English translation call him Matthew here? Or does everyone's translations do Levi? We're on chapter 2, verse 13.
This one is showing
I picked up the new King James, so.
I mean, yeah, where it says he is with Matthew, like in the chapter heading, but when you're reading it, it calls him Levi.
Yeah. So that's understood to be Matthew. Now, what's probably going on there is Levi is probably a family name, but you're probably also seeing kind of the difference between like English and not English, Greek and Hebrew. Like Matthew is probably his Greek name, and Levi was probably like his Hebrew name. I think it's a little bit more broad than that. We still have this today. You got like what's Jesus in Spanish?
Jesus.
Yep. You got Jesus. You know, like that.
Bob and Michael.
Bob and Michael. Yeah, exactly. We were talking about naming a kid Richard in a modern day, and that's not a nice thing to do. like that's like the other day.
I have a couple of observations. In the very beginning when we started this, did not the narrators or the people that were doing the research admit that perhaps the chronological order that Mark puts in may not be the exact chronological order these events actually occurred?
So all right. So that's actually a good point. So I have weird rules for how I study the Bible now, like all those things. And one of those is Mark is telling us a story about, and he is showing us what his view of what Jesus is. I don't know if this is the actual chronological order. Like that's I don't know if it is. And that's why I've kind of been on, and that's kind of what you, Jeff, you and I talked about what was that, last Sunday? I can't remember, maybe a couple Sundays ago, and all of that stuff, that it's, Mark is telling us a certain facet. And so he has put the calling of Matthew, the tax collector, who is called Levi here, sitting right here in this moment. Like he has wanted us, like, think about how he's written the book so far. You kind of have this preamble that kind of culminates in Jesus' baptism. And that you have the talking about of the creation, you have the prophets, and you have the whole baptism and the lifting up of Jesus. And then after that, you have this section where Jesus is doing all this work of calling the disciples, healing all these people. And that, to me, and this is my opinion, culminates now in a summary of the entire Gospel of Mark, that there is actual healing and forgiveness in Jesus, and everyone's amazed. And so now we're entered into a wrinkle here. We're introduced to Levi. Now, Levi doesn't mean that he wears jeans all the time. Like that's not what that means.
And this is his fifth. This is the fifth apostle that he's called. He hasn't called Philip. He hasn't called Thomas. He hasn't called any of the others yet.
And we kind of get a list of them right after where we stopped reading. So we may hit that today. We'll kind of see how much we talk. So far, we're doing good with the talking, which is keep on talking. That's what makes this thing good. So we haven't. So we're meeting Matthew, but his name's Levi. So what does that mean? What does that mean?
He's the family of the priest. He's from the priestly. So he's probably knowledgeable of the Torah.
He's knowledgeable of the Torah. His job, most likely, is to do kind of what I do. Run the synagogue, run parts in the temple. And so the question is, when you are a good Jewish boy and girl, I used to talk about this all the time, and I don't do it too much anymore, but you got to put your biblical glasses on, and you read this like an original hearer would. They're reading this and they're like, let's see, where's the reading? So, he went out to the sea of the multitudes, and he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's office. Tax collector's office. So they were occupied by Rome. So you have a good Jewish boy who, just by his family, he's supposed to be a Pharisee or something like that, but he is collecting tax money for the enemy, for the empire that has all of the money control and power over Jerusalem, right? There's something wrong there. When you read this, you should bristle a little bit and like, what a turncoat, like that's, I could probably use a bunch of examples that I grew up with like phrases like the South will rise again and stuff. But
he chose a potentially easier life with money versus the harder life with going through and becoming a Pharisee or a leader of the synagogue and having to deal with.
It could be that easy where he chose like a way with money.
It could be rebellion.
It could be rebellion. It could be like he wasn't getting along with his family.
He changed his name.
Like that. That's
maybe he figured that the leaders of the church are not teaching what he thought they were supposed to be teaching.
And Cassie just said something I think is intuitive in this.
He didn't want anybody to know it was him.
He didn't, like, that's with the math, like we call him Levi here, but he's known as Matthew everywhere else, like that's, and so is he just going by Matthew? He's kind of changed his identity. I think this signals that there is some family hurt going on here. It could be because he's selfish and went for the money. It could be something, but there could be rebellion. I don't know what it is. We don't know. But something happened where he's collecting taxes for the enemy as his job. You know, that's a huge, and you got to put yourself in that mindset to truly understand what's going on here. Yeah, guys?
Maybe he was forced to do that.
The force?
He was forced.
Like someone's going to break his legs if he didn't do it? The old gambling debt?
No. Maybe he.
The pressure of society around him,
Maybe the Romans. He's got a talent.
Yeah.
He's a mathematician.
Yeah.
He can add, subtract.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, you have to do this. So any way it is, like that's a possibility too. He's not living out his good duty. You know, it's like, I don't know. Have you ever seen any of like preachers' kids, and they're just go off into whatever? You know, all preachers' kids are perfect, right, Kylie? Like that's like that's, and so like that's. I think you kind of get the gist there, right?
It is a very human, like you can understand in a way, like that path isn't like, oh, how did that guy get there?
Yeah.
That can happen to anyone. That's part of life. So like, it's like a very realistic.
It could just be something that nobody else thinks is important. But maybe somebody in his family's sick. Maybe he's trying to. We just don't know.
We have no idea. Cassie, you want to say something?
I don't know if I'm thinking ahead of myself, but just going down to verse 17 when they question why he was eating with tax collectors.
Yeah.
Levi could do that knowing that he could still sit at the table.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of it, because you see, like, so he says to Levi, he says to Matthew, follow me, and he got up and followed him, just like Peter and all these things. So he gets up and follows him, which is interesting. And then you have like Mark, I think, being funny here, like, now what happened? Like, as we're continuing through, he was dining at Levi's house, and who's dining at Levi's house? Was probably all of his friends, and it's all these sinners, right? And
he quotes that, he puts it in quotations, the sinners, almost just like
to
gesture it.
Yours quotes it?
It says with the sinners in quotes.
Yeah, mine doesn't have that.
Yeah, mine has quotations also. Yeah, verse 16.
Verse 16?
Mine only quotes when he says, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick.
So yours
are we talking about 17?
Why does it eat with tax collectors and sinners?
It does say
it
that,
does, but it specifically on mine puts in quotes.
Okay, I see.
Like he's going with the sinners.
Yeah, with many tax collectors and sinners.
Sinners.
What is this?
Curtis has a cheat sheet over there.
It's NIV. It's the same as here. Okay, yeah. So he talked in verse. That was in verse 13. No, not verse 13.
Verse 16.
Is it 16?
16.
Mine started at 15.
Let's see. No, it's verse 15 is when yours does that, doesn't it?
No, 16.
16 and 17.
Yeah, anyway. So like that's I think it's trying to make the English translations are trying to like, hey, look at this word. Like that's like, don't just pass by.
Read it as like
well, in my New King James, what they put in quotes is the statement from the Pharisees. The Pharisees said that, how is it that he eats and drinks with tax collectors and sinners? That's all in quotes in my book.
So, and even in that part, when what the Pharisees say, sinners has a single line quote in the center on that too.
So why are the Pharisees
they're emphasizing sinners, or they're trying to say
Yeah. So why are the Pharisees upset? Like, why is this story in here?
Because taxation is
my
theft.
question is, why are the Pharisees even there?
Well, I think they're always looking at Jesus.
That's what my point is. Every time he turn around, there's a Pharisee up his tush.
Yeah. Oh, there is. So Ken, you were about to say something.
Because taxation is theft and theft is sin. So like hand in hand they go. So
yeah.
That's how I interpret it.
It's like I think they're looking at this and in tax collectors and sinners probably means I think it's wanting us to look bigger at that word tax at sinners too. That there's probably a cast of characters here that is bigger than this.
That the church would look at and say they're not allowed in the synagogue. We don't have any affiliation.
Yeah.
They're out like we cast you away from our.
And he's eating it. And what I think is fascinating is there's all these like rules about eating with people kind of thing. It's like, ooh, if you eat with them, you're supporting what they're doing. Yeah, like that's
breaking bread.
Do what?
Like breaking bread. I feel like it's getting into government being against the people. I don't know. That's how it feels. Like you say sinners.
Yeah, like
tax collectors.
Oh,
it's against the what's holy and people being for the people.
Yeah, like and what's wild about this is that we go straight into this whole thing about fasting and Sabbath. And I think this story about Matthew here and the Levites and Jesus is coming to them. Mark is setting up this section about what he's saying, that Jesus has come to save something. And he isn't coming to save the law. He hasn't come to purify the law. He hasn't come to purify doctrine. He hasn't come to purify all those things. He's come for the way Jesus puts it is those who are well have no need for a physician, but those who are sick. I did not come to call the righteous, but the sinners.
He's not coming to save those that don't think they need saving.
Yeah, this isn't the best word, but it's the word I use. I think it helps when you read a little bit of sarcasm into what Jesus is saying.
Yeah,
you know,
they know they're no better.
And you could just tell, like, just imagine what Jesus is looking at when he's saying this. You know, it's like I didn't, you know, like the sick, they have got no need for a physician. You know, like that's. But those who are sick, you know, I didn't come to call the righteous. And he just like looks right at the Pharisees. You know, I didn't come to say like those. And I like how you put those that don't think they need to be saved. You know, and so there are Jesus is going against three forms of power here. It's personal, political, and religious. That those three groups, and you can see him going after that religious power where these guys are wanting to control Jesus. And they're also wanting to prove a point to Matthew too.
When he says that too, the Pharisees in their heart, they know that was directed to them.
Oh yeah.
Like there's no mistaking. They knew what he was saying.
If we've done our job, by the time we get through this book, you'll see why they wanted to kill him. Like you should already see it a little bit. You know, like that.
One thing the thing I find it's interesting is, if I'm not mistaken, in order for you to become considered a rabbi, didn't you have to go through formal training and education and everything?
Oh yeah, it's like seminary education, probably more in depth than what I am. You know, like that's.
But they always refer to Jesus as a rabbi, but he's never gone through formal training. He was the trainer.
He would have had some training like that. That's just because he was a good Jewish boy, and I think it's by seeing his knowledge and all of that, and the fact he doesn't come on to the stage until he's 30, something like that. You know, until
he's older. Maybe he got trained.
Like that, he got screened.
Trained in his missing years.
Yeah,
like formal training.
But and we got to be careful that we don't go too far. I think he would have had some training, but I think also there would have been some inspiration to him, being God on earth and things like that. Leave some mystery to it, and all those things. But he would have at least went through a bar mitzvah.
Right. Well, in the wilderness.
Heavily back then.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not Mark, so.
Yeah. I know. I have a hard time.
Never mind.
Sticking to it as well. I know. And so then look at what we talk about right after this. Now, remember what I said about John the Baptist before, that I kind of think John the Baptist wasn't right about Jesus. I think he thought Jesus was going to come in power, in majesty.
Army, yeah.
Yeah, with all the army. And so this is kind of my evidence for that. All right? Look, verse 18 in chapter 2. And the disciples of John, along with the Pharisees, who are all like pushing up their glasses and like you're not allowed to do any of this. Like everyone else is fasting. Why aren't you guys? Like that's what they are asking. Why aren't you doing the religious practices that you're supposed to be doing?
Government above the law.
Yeah. They're like, you've come, and what we're going to see is they are wanting Jesus to fit into the box of the law, and they're wanting Jesus, and what we're going to see through that is that they're putting everybody else in that same box of the law, and like God will smile on you if you fit, so you better comply.
They're gaslighting.
Gaslighting them too. Like that. That's why. Yeah, that's very likely too. That's very likely too.
The way I envisioned the early about that time, they didn't call it a caste system, but it's almost like a caste system.
Yeah.
You had the Pharisees, the scribes, and such. They kept to themselves. They intermarried amongst themselves, and if anybody tried to bridge that gap, they looked frowned upon them, kind of shot them down.
Yeah.
And Jesus comes in and challenges that.
So look at what Jesus says, verse 19. Can friends of the bridegroom fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as the bridegroom is with them, they cannot fast. So ceremonial fastings and Sabbath and all that stuff, a wedding superseded all of that, because it was like a joyous thing. And so Jesus is kind of like pointing out, like, hey, like the good news is here today. Like they're not mourning, they have like the good stuff here type of thing. So that kind of adds like a little flavor to this that we miss because we're not first century Jews.
Like the kingdom of God is right here, right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it says, and the days will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast in those days. I don't know what to do with that phrase.
Is that a soft split?
Ooh, a soft split? Like what are you asking about?
Because he's still talking about fasting, but then he says, but day will come.
Okay. Like it could be like we're still staying on the same theme and all these things, like
just for a second.
Yeah.
He says, but the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, but then they will fast. So he's still talking about it. He just
Yeah. No, I think it's one of these things that it jars us out of it for a second. Because I like to picture like Jesus, like when he's actually like saying this, and imagine like someone saying this. It's like, why would they, when the groom and the bride are here and we're partying, like why would they fast? There's going to be a time coming when the bridegroom won't be here. Then they'll fast. then you guys would get your way. You know?
He's talking about other things too, right after that. Using, an unshrunk cloth to sew an old garment.
Yeah.
New wineskins versus old wineskins.
Yeah. So how is that connected?
So he's saying that there's going to be new things, and these new things are going to take place for the old, these ways that you've thought and been told through Moses, that those are going to change now that I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not just going to intermingle.
Yeah, we're not going to mesh. We're not going to blend them together. Like this is the new way.
So David and Ashley, let's make sure you guys understand what's going on here. Because this is like everyone has heard at this table, except probably you guys, 100 sermons on what wineskins are. like it's just how they used to keep wine. They didn't keep them in bottles. They put them in.
I watched enough Game of Thrones to know.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. And so, but they would stretch out in the fermentation process, so you couldn't ferment new wine in old wineskins because it had already lost all its elasticness out of it. So everyone out that's like one of the favorite things that preachers preach about is new wine in old wineskins, and so that's really. That's because you grew up in a tradition where wine was evil. Really? You haven't heard too many sermons on that either?
No, we didn't drink wine in communion either.
Yeah, Welch's. Yeah. The
and oyster crackers. It wasn't like
really?
Oyster crackers. Yeah.
An oyster cracker. That's probably a cheaper way of doing it.
Got a little clam chowder.
Yeah. Such a stupid.
That was so dumb.
That was so dumb. So yeah, like it's the new wine and old wineskins. So how's that connected to Jesus? Because he says it all like in one paragraph there. Like that's where he's like, we're going to party because the bridegroom is here now. There's going to be a time when the bridegroom isn't. Like, I kind of think maybe he's like, there's some foreshadowing of the crucifixion there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think he's talking about himself.
Yeah. He's talking about the crucifixion there, which is interesting because that's, we got 3 days of that and then he rises again, and like the bridegroom is back type of thing. But there's definitely, especially with how this section ends where they want to kill him, like that, which think about that we know that they're going to want to kill him here in a couple verses, that he's going. So imagine he's like, look, they're going to party now because the bridegroom is here, like the wedding party is here. We're having a good time. And then he looks right at them and they're like selfish black hearts. And he's like, but there's a time when it'll be taken away from them. And then like one of them looks down and kicks a pine cone, like that, that's, like that, that's you coming out. And then he goes, after he says that, he's like, why do you guys want new things in old wineskins? Like that's, it's just going to burst and fail if you do all that. Like that, it's very all of a sudden practical,
And it transitions into another church tradition of the Sabbath. And so it's like just piling on the Pharisees of just like forcing or, putting that tradition into people and saying, if you don't do this, then you're wrong.
Yeah.
And again, Jesus is like, no.
Yeah. and so look at what he does though. Like, so so he's walking through the grain fields on the Sabbath and they're picking off heads of the grains and popping them in like they're corn nuts or something like that, and they're eating there. And the Pharisees, were following, again, you guys aren't allowed to do that. It's working. Yeah. Like that's, it's working. And in the Sabbath, they're not supposed to do any work. I don't. Has anyone spent any real time inside of like an Orthodox Jewish community? where they take like the Sabbath day seriously and all that. So they have all these weird rules. So your refrigerator most likely has a Sabbath mode on it. And there's like ways that you could turn on. It's like the plunger on it that there's like a sequence that you turn the light on and off. You can hit that in a certain sequence and it'll put it into Sabbath mode. And according to Orthodox Jews, turning on a light bulb is work. Like, so turning on a light is work. But your refrigerator's compressor, keeping food cold all day, is not work. So they have all these weird rules about it. So they can hit the sequence and they can open the refrigerator and the light won't turn on. Most refrigerators have a Sabbath mode.
The refrigerator door ain't work?
Yeah, like that. That's like, listen, I don't make the rules. All right, like that. That's and so.
You use that light anyway. You got the lights on in the house.
But that's an example of the devotion to the Sabbath. And so there's all these little rules. That's why we're talking about them fasting when the bridegroom is there and all that stuff. All these things to like the Pharisees, like this is their life. You know, like they're like, we're helping people live out this vision of keeping the Sabbath because it's one of the commandments. It's one of the commandments. Like they're keeping the commandments there.
In a way, but they twisted
I think
what God intended that to mean, to force their own agenda or their own human nature to it. And that's what Jesus is like doing the.
His face is so red because he like that's the.
I'm the Lord of the Sabbath.
Yeah. So he notice what he does here. He does the same thing that he just did about the fasting. So in the fasting, he used one of the loopholes in the rules. And so again, he kind of does a loophole. He's like, hey, you guys remember the story about when David, King David, the good David, you guys all like, that he was in need and hungry and those with him, and how he went into the house of God. He went into the tabernacle in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, and he ate the communion wafers. Basically, that's not what the showbread is, but that's basically what it is to us. Like he ate all of that, which was not lawful to eat except for the priests, and also gave some to those that were with him. He goes, you guys don't have any problems with that.
Wasn't that story in 1 Samuel when he's trying to run away from Saul?
Yeah, it is. It is. When he's running for his life from Saul. Like that. We did a sermon series on that a few years ago called Rise and Fall. It's pretty great. And so
I wonder if it was kind of great because the person that did the sermon was great.
Yeah. It's some sermons are a little better. And so then he said. Then he says this, and I think this goes with the wineskins. This goes with everything we have. That the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is the Lord of the Sabbath. And that is a key idea, that these Pharisees and all are wanting everyone to fit into the Sabbath. And he's like, no, it's the opposite.
Well, when he said that,
for you.
When he said that, isn't their first thought of right immediately that's blasphemous?
Like who? Like, what do you mean blasphemous?
He's called himself the Lord of the Sabbath. That's kind of put him on par with God. So that's blasphemous.
Yeah. I mean, you're having another title for God here. Yeah, type of thing here. Like it's, and so, but I think him saying like that the ways of God are for people. Like that's it. You have a weird face.
Yeah, I do. Thanks. My mom said that. The doctor said it too.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. Well, you look like you want to say something.
I do.
Yeah.
God made the Sabbath like for man, and it was for rest. He wanted people to be able to and take a break. And the way that the Pharisees were building the Sabbath in this time was more work than relax.
And worry about if they were doing it right or not.
Right. So it was not even going to the intent that God wanted it to be. And that's where he says that.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting in here. And you see the outcropping of that here at the beginning of chapter 3. That it's, we get an example of this. And he entered the synagogue again, and there was a man with a withered hand, and so they watched him closely if he would heal on the Sabbath. And which is great. I love that Mark's like, and they watched him closely. Because you can just imagine these Pharisees, they're like, bring the cripple, see if we can catch him. Like that.
The trap is set.
Yeah. They're all like, like that's. Let's see. They're like all watching them.
Get the bread.
You can't stay away from him. Like that. That's he's gonna do it. And so they're all watching him there, and they're like it's Saturday. Like here we go, and they do it so they might accuse him. And remember the word for accuse is sanatos. It's Satan. That's in the Greek. Let's have some fun. I know. We may go a couple minutes over. Look at this dog with a cone. That's ridiculous. Like that. That's. I have you off screen right now. Let's see. I need. What is it? Interlinear. Linear. And this is Luke. Not Luke. Mark 3. What verse is that? 2. 2. All right. And then we'll go here. And I'll bring Zoom over now.
I will say, I'm glad we touched on that because I wrote that down for the last 2 weeks, covering about man was made for the Sabbath. So
yeah.
I'm glad we touched on that.
Let's see here. So they're watching. So this is the Greek right here. This is the Greek, and then this is like a very wooden translation of it. So and they were watching him whether on the Sabbaths he would heal him in order that they might accuse him. Ooh, that's quite the word. Like so let's see what this word is. Oh, there's an ad. And so
get this translator now.
Yeah. So so Matthew, is it the same story? Yeah, it's the same story that this word is used in Matthew. Now I want to see what the root is. I want to see the root word. Is that the root word?
Yes, to accuse the charge. Yes, it is.
Is the website you're on like Wikipedia for the Bible breaking down the different languages?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Or different translations of language. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. So, all right. It's not sanatos. It's a different word. All right. So that's why I wanted to look it up. And so it's a different word. Whoops. Go back to here. All right. So we, but they want to, they want to accuse him. They want to, get him with it. And so he knows this in verse 3, and he said to the man who had the withered hand, like, come on up, step forward. And then he looks at all of them, and he's like, what's lawful? Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save a life or to kill? So here's what he's referencing. On the Sabbath day, let's say we were all hanging out on a Saturday. We just gotten done with Sabbath school. It was pretty cool and all that stuff. And we go.
Sabbath school have been
It would have been on Saturday. It would have been. It's like Sunday school, Sabbath school. Like that. That's a joke. And so like that's and so we're going home and we're all walking and we find Kyler in a pit and he's got a broken leg and he can't get out and. He's probably going to die down in that pit unless we get him out. But it's work to get him out. Like and we're like, We can't work on the Sabbath.
Do we save him or do we kill him?
Yeah, like that. Well, I don't know. Like that's, but actually the law says for you to disregard the working thing and get and save the life. So that's what it says. So Jesus then is saying to this guy, he's like, what is it? Should we give this guy his life back? Or should we give this guy a life? So he can work again and all of that. And then what do they do when he says that? That's what he's referencing when he says that. What did they do? They're sniveling cowards is what they are. They're sniveling cowards. Yeah, because they knew he was right. And like all that stuff, they're cowards. And so he's like, well, all right. And and grab, and it says that let's actually read what they said. But they kept silent. And when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said, give me your hand. And he stretched it out, his hand, and it was restored as whole as the others. And the Pharisees then, they went out immediately and plotted with the Herodians, which is like Herod's priests, and plotted against him how they might destroy him.
They didn't like the Herodians.
Yeah, no, like this, where hate can really unify a bunch of people. That's
enemy of my enemy.
Yeah. So think about that though. Like that's they see this and they just are silent at it because they're like, because they want to catch him in it, but they can't say anything. And you look at that and you're like, no wonder they want to kill him. Because he is just messing with their game. He's just messing with what they got going on.
Doing things that they can't do themselves.
Yeah.
And they know it.
And he's also, as we're going to get further into this, he's giving people freedom. And they and other people they make a good amount of money by keeping people down.
And have control.
They've got control.
Do you think I'm thinking there's a resemblance of giving freedom and giving free will in this.
Yeah.
Letting the tiger out. It's free will. Does the tiger get you? Does it not?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what we see is that Jesus gives. And what I like and how I really define freedom, Curtis defined it earlier like this, is it's able to breathe again. That it's like giving you breath, which is a beautiful. I like that metaphor because breath, wind, and spirit are all the same word in Greek, and so he's giving freedom again, and so that's good. And so cool. We got through that whole reading. Good job. Did anyone want to add anything? Have any thoughts before we're done here? We kind of went over a little bit. That's anything? Any last thoughts?
Well, every time you compare breathing to wind to the spirit, I think of God winding the breath of life in Abraham.
Oh, I know. Or Jesus, yeah. There's a few times he wins in the people.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's hopefully he didn't have garlic bread before that. And so that's, but it's what I like after those jokes. What I like, one of my favorite images is the Spirit of God going through the palmetto bushes, causing them to clap their hands. That's one of my favorite images of the Spirit of God moving through the creation. That you can feel the spirit, wind, and breath are the same word in Hebrew and in Greek. Yeah, you can see the wind going through everything right now. So that's fun. It's fun. All right, anything else?
Did you say palmetto bushes?
I don't flaunt your failures, all right?
No, I was just double checking what I'm writing down.
I called it palmetto bushes, but the palmettos.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
no, that's fine. I was just making sure I wrote down the right thing.
Oh yeah, palmettos, yeah. But all right. Well, we'll end right there. For everyone that's watching on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. All right.